Hey,
Hello.
how's everyone doing?
Hey, I'm John,
I'm Danny.
and you guys might know us from VAT19. I've got a YouTube channel and make videos there, and yeah, it's a ton of
It's,
fun.
it's a ton of fun, and it's a little unique there because we are a business that runs a popular YouTube channel. So it's a little unique, which is why we're talking about running a business and specifically video production business during COVID. We got a big team there. We have another company on the side, which we'll get to a little later.
Yeah.
We're gonna kind of help you work through that, but first, what we kind of want to kind of set the groundwork for is what we're going to talk about really is a way to address any kind of obstacle, because if you can reframe your thinking a little bit, you don't have to worry so much about, is it COVID, is it this, that. It's going to help you to kind of rethink the strategies to help get to the same end solution no matter what obstacles are thrown your way. So
Right. So like the biggest, obviously, one of the big problems in our world right now is this pandemic, and that makes it hard to do lots of different kinds of work. But what we're going to be talking about is taking some of the strategies to help deal with the pandemic specifically, but applying it to any kind of problem that you face. And so, yeah, first of all, I just want to say if you have any questions at any time, throw them into the chat, and we will try to do our best to answer them. We're going to pause periodically throughout and answer questions. So let's get right to it.
yeah, and we might not get to as many specific COVID things as you might be looking for. So if you have questions, we'll try to answer them. But it's such a wide, big world that restrictions are different in every different place. So we're going to try to be respectful of that. So what we want to talk about first is just we're going to use the term creative filter a lot, and that's a thing that we've kind of developed at like throughout our lifetime. So we've used it all the time and it works really well. It's just a way of thinking of your problems, and we're going to teach you how to rethink of your problems or obstacles as creative filters. That way, if you can keep your goal in mind and quit trying to figure out kind of how do we get back to normal, you can really get to that end solution better. And what you'll find is if you kind of change your perspective on what those problems are, you're going to get new ideas that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah. So just any kind of obstacle, any kind of problem that you come up against, instead of looking at it like something that's preventing you from getting to something, just try, this is maybe just the optimist in us, but
Yeah.
rethink that problem as a creative filter. And man, you'll be surprised with what you can come up with, what you can create and what you can do when you look at problems as creative filters. So that's kind of where we're going with this. Again, the pandemic is sort of the backdrop of what's going on, and that's kind of the big creative filter that we are trying to do our work through right now. So yeah, so
we'll start with a little bit of background in case you don't know who we are, what we've done, and then why all of this makes sense and applies to COVID.
Yeah, so stick with us. Okay, so I'm John, and I actually started working at VAT19 in 2008. So it's been quite a while, 12 years, which it goes by fast. This was like baby years of YouTube,
Yeah.
Which is hard to believe. This is when YouTube was brand new. And so I got hired at VAT19 to make instructional videos for the products that were being sold on VAT19.com. So VAT19 is an e-commerce store, and they specialize in curiously awesome products is the tagline. That's probably a good way to put it.
Really unique gifts is another way to think about it.
5-pound gummy bears, magnetic silly putty, all kinds of just unique things that you might not really find on the main shelves at Walmart or Target or something like that. But also really good gifts for the person who has everything and they need something a little more creative. That's VAT19. So I was hired to be like the video guy. It was a small company, like 3 people. And I was hired to write the scripts and shoot the videos and edit the videos, do the whole thing. So that was my job description. But,
and the videos were also, he's being a little tame, like the videos were really, really kind of long. They were fun, but they were mostly about explaining these weird products because they were very unique, especially that.
Yeah, for sure. What I wanted to do, though, that wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, was make, instructional videos about quirky little products. I wanted to make entertainment and comedy and all kinds of, bigger, I had bigger visions of ideas and stuff. So that's where I wanted to go with it. So I used my job description, not that it was a problem, but I used that as a creative filter. I had to make these commercials. I had to do this job. And
you had to explain the products.
I had to explain the product. I had to teach people that were interested in buying it all of the things that this product could do. And on the way there, along the way there, we could entertain them and maybe even bring them back to watch some more of this entertainment. And they wouldn't even necessarily realize, this was my idea, that they wouldn't even necessarily realize they were watching a commercial because the content would be so good. So the entertainment and the advertisement would be so intertwined that we called it advertainment. And that was kind of the shift, and that was where we started to go with it. Entertainment first, make them laugh, make them enjoy what they're watching, and then before they knew it, they were watching 20 commercials. And so like, just think back to how we applied that to creative filters. What John was doing was his boss gave him his goal, like, so he knew what the goal that he had to keep in mind was. Yep.
And in this case, it wasn't a problem, but the creative filter was it had to explain the products. So really, as long as John gave his boss what he wanted and did what it needed to do, he realized there would be some flexibility to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah. So like I loved making music videos and all kinds of goofy, funny things. And growing up, actually, side note, Danny and I grew up together, went to different schools together in college and stuff. So we kind of have done this together for a long time. But I always wanted to make a music video. So I said, well, how can I do that while still working at this job? And so I pitched to my boss the idea of making a full music video, writing the song, recording the song, because I had a lot of background in music. And we made this whole thing that was very loosely a commercial also. So it's this giant music video, not giant, it's a song, but it was a full production for one guy basically. And it was all promoting these sticky notes, like a Post-it note, but like a bigger one. It was like they're called jumbo sticky notes, so they're this big. And so my boss loved the idea. We made this big music video. It was super fun. It brought a lot of people to the channel, and all along the way, it was just promoting this little product. So that was the idea. That was the creative filter. And it created it opened up a lot of opportunities for creativity.
Yeah. So then did the small e-commerce site still do what it was doing that made it unique, make videos to explain these quirky products, but now it became this marketing campaign, and the channel and the brand grew. So by the time about 6 years later, I've been at Bat19 making videos that started about 6 years ago.
Well, before we get to your story, let's just pause for one quick second and see if there's any questions. Just to remind you guys, I don't see any coming through in the chat, which is totally fine. But if you have anything, throw them at us, and we'd love to take a quick pause and answer your questions. Anyway, that's my history of Bat19 12 years ago. But then 6 years ago.
Yeah. So 6 years ago, the advertainment had been in kind of full spin. The team grew. It wasn't just John anymore. It was a handful of people, all with more specialized roles, and I got brought on to do a similar role to John, but really just focus on directing and producing videos and not worrying about editing or writing or anything like that, because the team had grown to have those guys. But the videos that I worked on were still like kind of formatted. Like I would get a script from a writer who would make me a product video, and then I would take a product video and I would make the whole video. It'd be fun and entertaining, and it'd be a great commercial, but it was still just kind of working within this box. And we had just kind of started to play with, at the time, BuzzFeed was getting big, and doing these kind of sit down at a panel style videos were starting to become popular, sitting at a table and doing challenges or playing games, but we never did anything like that. Our boss didn't see us much as YouTubers, more still a retail store. And I wanted to be this kind of YouTuber and make fun, entertaining content for this unique platform that was a little different. And I thought there were ways, I would think that there were other ways we could make these videos. So I came up with this idea, which is called Real versus Gummy, which is now a big trend and a style in which you basically play games with real food or gummy food, candy food, whatever it's going to be. I'd come up with that because we sold all this strange gummy. I was like, hey, well, what if we played this game? We just made this video, and the way to hide the commercial is it's going to be an entire video of our products, of these gummy products. It was just another way. Like, my boss wanted me to make product videos about a commercial, but these sit down and play game videos didn't always work. So I came up with a unique way to do it. But what we really found that was cool about that was that caused us to come up with another creative filter, which was rethinking how we do viral videos. We were always just swinging for the fences at the time, and like, let's make a big music video, let's do a big stunt, let's do something and try to make a video that gets a lot of eyeballs. So I was like, well, what if we come up with a creative idea that is easy to recreate? So that's neat, because the game in itself isn't, it's unique, but it's not that hard to reproduce. Anybody could do it at home. So they're going to love watching the video because it looks like something you and your friends could do. But more importantly, other creators would start doing that. And it became a huge trend that year. still continues to do things. And we started rethinking what could viral trend mean for us. It could mean either one of our videos, goes really big, which that video is bigger now. It's like 36 million. In the grand scheme of YouTube, though, like it at the time, it didn't get that many views. That video is very old now, so it's got a lot of views. But we were really thinking about just like how we shift that idea, and we saw so much more value because not only did our video, which did as well as our videos could do really well, and it brought value in that way, but every time somebody made a video with that challenge, we sold gummy bears. So like we sold gummy candy. We did all that stuff. They would buy it from us. They would talk about us, and our video would get tons more views. And then we started making more videos of that, and it became a genre for us to do. So just shifting that filter, like, okay, well, how can we take this idea that year challenges were big? Like, how can we get into challenges? Like, this is the filter I want to use. How do we do that? Apply it to products. And all of a sudden now the brand is bringing value from places we didn't have before. So again, YouTube was shifting. We needed to find another way to stay relevant and get into that. So our problem was, as YouTube shifts, how do we apply that to our model? Well, we did that instead of thinking of it as a problem, like, oh, YouTube's becoming less production or less sketches and more challenges and sitting at a table. We saw it as an opportunity to just adapt and move along and add that to our repertoire. And that became a big, great thing for us. So problem, what was a problem, YouTube's changing and we were struggling to keep up, and just think about how do we use that as a filter to make new content. And I think maybe another easy analogy to think about that is like when you were a kid and you'd go to school and your teacher would give you just a handful of crayons. You got only those colors. You got to draw a picture. That's what you got to do. It's the same kind of concept. Instead of looking at things as problems, just being like, these now just show me which tools I can use.
You might not have made a purple walrus before, but if all you have is a purple crayon, you're making a purple walrus. And that'd be a cool walrus.
So again, that was a problem. YouTube shifted, but we made it work. It just became a creative tool. And now we do all kinds of challenge videos. We've done all kinds of panels that we've done tons of things. It's been great value. So
looks like we got a question.
Yeah, looks like we got a question.
How is the global pandemic affecting your business of online video?
Yeah, so it was really tough at first, but we had a really unique, again, it's just like looking at what does this change our resources and our tools. So we had a really unique situation at VAT19 where everybody that worked there basically had a side hustle and equipment and cameras. So we were like, hey, we don't have to all be by each other right now. We can kind of separate, take advantage of the technology, Skype, or not Skype, I'm showing my age there.
Yeah.
Zoom now. And we could figure out how to make it work. What videos could we still make in that style?
Yeah. So for example, we have a very popular series at VAT19 where you might be familiar with the game White Elephant, which you might play at Christmas time or some holidays with your family, where everyone brings gifts and they kind of swap and trade and steal and stuff like that. We do that at VAT19. In normal circumstances, we would do that all 7 people on a set sitting right next to each other. Well, as soon as the pandemic hit and we couldn't all be in the same studio together, we had to rethink that whole show. So that became, literally the pandemic was our creative filter. And we said, how can we keep making this show? Because it would be easy to say, well, let's just toss it out. We can't do it. And let's come up with a different video series. But we said, this actually might be really interesting. And honestly, spoiler alert, I think it's better.
Yeah, I really did. And it was cool because the pacing changed.
What we did was we all went home. So each of the people that make videos at VAT19 were working from home. And so we each took camera equipment and lights and we set up in our houses, and then we connected via Zoom and discussed. We played White Elephant virtually, basically, and then in editing, we put up all the individual screens up, like kind of Brady Bunch style, with like different boxes. And honestly, I think it's better. I mean, we never would have done it. We never would have done it that way had we not been forced to do it that way. So,
and we could have we make tons of styles of videos. We could have sat there and been like, tried to figure out, how do we do this video? How do we do this video? But instead, looking at it as a creative filter, you're looking at your problem as your basically tool list first. So
right.
if this thing that was a problem that's now a creative filter, what are the pros to that? Forget about what you can't do. Just like, what advantages does that give me? And that'll give you a good starting point as to where can you use this to give you improvements. And then you can work with like, here's all the things we can't do. Don't even worry about that anymore. move along. There's a lot of functional things you've got to work out when somebody's on set. If you're working with kids or other people, who has masks off? How do you shoot? Do you hit roll and run out of the room? Sometimes that's feasible, sometimes it's not. The most important thing I can tell you is we live in a bi-state area, so that means we're dealing with Missouri and Illinois. We just recently did some work in New York, and every one of those localities has different guidelines.
Different
so
rules.
That's really going to be your filter there with what you can do. Like there's how many people you can have on set, or who is required to wear masks. How do you do it? It's really about just making sure everybody's safe and comfortable as best as can be. And then what are the rules and guidelines you need to apply by? And then we always try to use a filter of just like, what is the general scientific consensus say about what we can do? And anything that's not on that, we just kind of say, we'll go back to it in the future. But right now, this is the world we live in. We're going to move on and make the best content within that filter that we can.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that we've learned is that, with the pandemic specifically, is that it changes day to day, the guidelines and the rules, and you got phase this and mandates that, governors saying this. Like there's all sorts of changing requirements. And so for us to even give you any kind of specifics would not really be helpful at all. So what we've learned, though, is that you can use these problems as look at them as creative filters. And like the example that we gave of how to shoot those videos differently at home, just rethink how you can do what you're already doing and differently. And it might come out better. And honestly, like maybe start from scratch. You look at just a blank slate. How do you want to start over? But maybe try looking at how you do the things you do now completely differently. And man, I mean, honestly, it's been great. We've had great results from having to think outside the box.
Yeah, cool.
So
back to where we were. Even though we were getting millions of views on our videos, we were doing really well. But the idea of just shifting what we were searching for as a viral trend for one of our videos and be like, hey, can we make a viral trend and give it to the community? And there's just tons of value to that. And that's what allowed us to just branch out into another aspect. And again, you can see through this, like, you see John starting at Valentine, me starting at Valentine, and as we kind of go through, just adapting and rolling with the punches is kind of how you have to function in this industry. A couple of years ago, we were making 2.5 or 30-second to maybe 3-minute commercials for products, and now we make 10-minute to 20-minute videos in the same amount of time, but we've just had to adapt because of algorithmic changes, the world, the kind of videos we want to make, the kind of videos that are working. Again, everything, you're always going to be thrown these problems. And what we'll get into now is a little bit more specifics into our adventure with COVID and coronavirus, because
adventure is a good word.
We were, we have a separate business called Redding Creative, which is just a production company, really. Like if you just think about your traditional marketing or video production agency, that's what we did. So we recognized at Vat19 that what we did for them, for that brand, is valuable to other brands, and there's not a lot of people doing that. So we knew what we did there. We could offer that to other people as well. So we started this company on the side and just started doing for hire online video work. So if you needed an ad for online video, we'd be your guys. And we were pretty successful at that because we saw a need that everybody had, which is online video. Like it's growing. It just gets more and more necessary for sales, businesses, and all kinds of things. If you're looking to convert, video is huge.
Yeah.
So we saw that need. But we saw the problem was nobody could afford it. Like if we went the traditional agency route and tried to do everything the same way that most video production companies do or most ad agencies do, it was going to cost the same amount of money. And there was this huge chunk of clients that didn't have that money but still had the need. So our creative filter was people need an online video, but they can't afford it.
And especially when you're dealing with small businesses and stuff, which we have in our local area, they need an Instagram ad still, or like in order to stay competitive, local businesses need to have video. But like Danny said, it's not always feasible for a small mom and pop shop to pay video production prices because it's just expensive to have a crew of people and writers and shooters and editors. It gets complicated, which makes it expensive. And so, people need it, but they can't always afford it.
Yeah. So we talked to a lot of brands using that filter and understanding like, hey, here's where you need to go. And like, let's not do the traditional agency route. You want us to send you storyboards and hire all these people. Like that's cool, but that's going to cost you a lot of money. if you trust us to do it the way we've done it at VAT19, we can save you the money here. And sometimes we charge clients a traditional route and go that traditional route because that's what they wanted to go. But we found a lot more success like finding people who needed that budget thing, and we could give them the same value. So, because that's what we learned. So we use that creative filter of people's budgets and like, let's start a side company, but not try to be like everybody else is. Like, how do we use that filter of here's the most money we're going to get. Nobody's paying any more than this. Let's create our side business and our company there. So that's how Reading Creative was born. And that allowed us to find a very successful path for that.
Yeah,
and
to be clear, Reading Creative is just Danny and I, so it's not affiliated with VAT19. It's Danny and I are at VAT19, but we also have Reading Creative, just the two of us as our side business.
Yeah. So again, you can see that pattern. Like this is just kind of the way we thought, and this doesn't even go back as far as just VAT19. Like when we were in high school and college, you'd have teachers be like, "Hey, you need to do a report on this," and we would just ask them like, "Hey, I know you want us to write a report, but you really want us to study this group of people. Could I write a script and make you a video instead?" And they'd say, "All right, that meets my goals." And I just use those goals as my creative filter. John did the same thing. And we made a lot of videos when people didn't think you could. We just did what we wanted to do and applied that filter. So this is just a pattern of behavior for us, a good pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Totally.
So yeah, again, like if we could have gone the old route too, and like we said, we did, but eventually you started to see that traditional agency kind of money for us dry up because you're competing with everybody else. Everybody's making these things, they're bidding the same amount, and we knew if we could use our YouTube methods a little bit more and we could undercut some agencies, we could take a bit of business, which is
even before the pandemic, which again is a big problem that has kind of like become something we've all had to adjust to. Even right before that, there was a series of major tariffs that came to a lot of businesses in America, and so a lot of them it affected the supply chains a lot, and they couldn't afford. Again, they just really couldn't afford video. So we had to make some changes.
Yeah, and before we kind of move on to that part, I'll just remind you guys, if you guys have got any more questions, we've answered a couple, we'll see some pop up. We'll just kind of pause as we go, and then at the end, we'll open it back up. You guys are amazing. Oh, we got a comment here. Thank you. That's a comment, not a question, but I like it. What is your favorite videos to make? Ooh, good one.
Man, that's a good question. So
we've done a lot.
What's cool at VAT19 is that we have made a lot of different kinds of videos. Like Danny mentioned, the kind of the sit down at the panel, react to something, those kind of videos. We've done videos where we just make a commercial with only products. We've done a lot of things, but one of my favorite videos to work on, at least, maybe even to watch at the final product, was the kind of more the cinematic stuff. So we've done some things that are more cinematic or movie-esque, and we've done like an action scene. We've done, or I guess an action trailer. We've made an entire short film. Those are really fun to work on because they end up looking really Hollywood, but we've done them with very minimal crew. Yeah. So that's always really rewarding.
Yeah, I'll talk about one because I think it'll transition really well into Randomonium because we learned a lot developing it. I really like, John and I have a series that we work on called Hidden in Plain Sight, which is a series in which I go into work and I try to hide from my boss, Jamie, who owns VAT19. And he has the whole day to find me and put me back to work. And
it's a dream job.
It was a hard sell to the boss. But again, like I always think about like, what do I want to do? And then how do I just adapt what I want to do to that, or adapt what I have to do to that? So like,
what do you want?
I wanted to not work.
Jamie, if you're watching this, hi. Yeah, it's true.
That was kind of the joke of that part is like the ultimate, what do you want to get paid to do that you do for free is just not work. Like,
I think it was like we were coming into work one day and we're like, man, wouldn't it be great if you could just not work today?
Yeah, like this building's huge. You could go the whole day without being seen probably.
I bet you could hide all day from the boss and he'd never find you. That kind of, everybody has a thought like that.
Yeah, so that was a fun idea for a video and it was a fun series to make. So what we ended up developing out of that as we're watching that, we're trying to figure out how to tell this story. We shot this amazing first episode, and we edited the whole thing, and we're like, this isn't a video. This doesn't capture the feeling that we had when we made it. We even made a thumbnail that never got used, like all kinds of stuff. But what that did is because there was a problem, like the story that we told didn't match up to the way we lived it. we had to stop and rethink what we're like, how do we do this? Like, we're like, we just basically shot a reality show. Let's rethink this like a reality show. So we started producing it we decided to re-edit it and recontextualize it in our heads as a reality show instead of our traditional like YouTube vlog, you might have called it then. And we switched our production techniques into a reality style show. And I found out I really loved producing reality, like, because I always had a problem with with it being real, or like, were they faking this, or what did they do? Like, everybody always had beef with reality TV. And I found out that like when you do it with some integrity and you really make sure like I'm not changing the story, I'm just always thinking in my head how I'm writing that, like how I'm telling that story later, what happened. It allowed us to create really compelling stories, really awesome thing. And we just used traditional television production methods and writing and producing and all of that to create a cool YouTube show that's been really successful.
Yeah, and then taking that into the pandemic now, because that has been one of our very successful series at VAT19, and we love making it. So we immediately said, okay, now we've got this creative filter called COVID-19. How are we going to keep making Hidden in Plain Sight when
like I'm not going to work?
Thankfully, yeah, it's not a big production involved. Like, again, it's just Danny hiding.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that's social distance right there. But then it's me on camera, and then Jamie, the boss. You know, we're like probably less than 6 feet away all day, and we're just in the same building, and we don't want him to wear a mask the whole time. It's just awkward. You can't see what he's saying. So how do we make this show when we can't be in the building together and we can't be next to each other? And so we actually came up with a really good one that we made. I want to say it's episode 16.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it might be 16, where we shot it kind of, well, I won't spoil anything.
Well, we could just talk about our creative filter. So, like, everybody's doing what we're doing now. Like, we were going to be at VidCon this year meeting all of you in real life, but we're not now because of COVID, and we're embracing what we've got now. This really cool way to get VidCon to people who couldn't maybe travel to California,
True.
Which is, like, it happens, you know? Like, lots of people are like, I'd love to go, but I can't. Like,
yeah.
So we use the same thing. We did it. We figured out, how do we do it with video chat? And it gave us a really cool hiding spot.
How do we do Hidden in Plain Sight?
Yeah. How do we do Hidden in Plain Sight with a video chat?
Yeah.
So then, hang on, we're going to have to yell at somebody for coming in here. Who's coming in?
Hello.
It's our producer, Jeff. He needs a memory card. Get out of here, Jeff. Hey, buddy.
Hey. Say hi to VidCon.
He's gone. But yeah, so we figured out, how do we, let's use the video chat. What we do, that's our filter. How do we apply that to this same game that we've always played? And we came up with a really fun idea, which gave us a hiding spot we'd always wanted to do, but couldn't in real life.
Yeah, it's a great reveal. I highly suggest going to watch episode 16. It's a good video. But the other cool thing is that we kind of crafted that video in a way that if you're watching it now, knowing the current state of the world where we're all apart and we're doing video chats and stuff like that, you understand why we did it that way. Like, if you're watching it now, you get it. Oh, they shot it this way because they're not in the same room. But if you watch it 10 years from now, it won't necessarily be a distraction. Like, oh, they're all doing this on Zoom and there's like masks, and oh yeah, that was back when there was a pandemic. We wanted this video to be evergreen. So we really spent some time thinking through how can we say certain words, like he's going to keep distance from me, but not say like, like
he's got a social distance. Yeah. And that's probably one of the bigger functional things like that we could tell you is, of any advice we've had that's been successful for us, is understanding that this is not going to last forever. So the content you make will, and you have to make a decision. Do you want the content to live as a story about this time, which maybe somebody will go back and watch that again and remember it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, that might make sense for a vlog or something.
Yeah, or do you want to make it more evergreen? And we've done both. We did a really cool episode at VAT19 where we made a bunch of care packages for first responders and people who needed it during this time, who were really isolated. And that was really fun, but it's going to live in its bubble. But some of the other videos, like the Hidden in Plain Sight and even the White Elephant, if you know it, you can connect it. There's only a few things that really make it look like that. And that's probably the biggest functional thing we can tell you is, if you're going to try to make it evergreen, do your best to minimize the amount of distractions that remind you of COVID.
Right. Yeah.
Like earpieces. That's a big one. Like we try to hide those or make them as like not noticeable as possible, so that
like an earpiece from doing a Zoom call, recording yourself doing
communicating with your coworkers if you're doing shoots.
Yeah.
Like that. So, so back to that is like, we learned a ton doing that reality style production, and we loved it. It came off really well. It it blended really well with YouTube and the style of video people are used to seeing. And you could do it in a way that really attracted older people, younger people, people who are used to the platform, people who weren't. And that came in really handy during our next chunk of timeline, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
Like our next little time frame that we're going to talk about, which goes right into our biggest hurdle with COVID, which was, like John said, the tariffs not that long ago were a big hurdle for us.
Which it seems like a million years ago to talk about things before the pandemic. But
yeah. And what you got to understand about the tariffs is our clients are frequently people who make products. Products are really commonly made in China. So our clients were people who were, their bottom line was being affected. So the amount they had to spend on everything was cut. So we had been meeting with a client for a while, trying to get them to sign on for some videos, like to work on a YouTube brand for them or a social media brand for them. And they were all on board for a while, and then the tariffs hit. So they came to us and they're like, we really want to work with you guys.
We just can't afford it.
We just can't afford it.
Do you work for free? And we said, nah.
And that can be really frustrating as creators. And if you do run a video production business where you're dealing with clients, you know this pain. Like, I can't afford you, but I want you. And it can get really depressing. I'll be honest. Like, you're like, why doesn't anybody see my value? This stuff is so hard. There's tons of work to it. It's difficult. And we could have looked at that and been like, you know what? This client's not worth it for us. That's not going to work. Let's find another client that works within our business model. And they were really cool. We liked them. We wanted to work with the brand. So they said, well, you guys are entrepreneurs. Think about just any outside of the box idea that you can have to make this work. We need commercials for our products. We want you guys to make them.
They basically, I think they literally said, get creative, come up with a creative solution. Yep. And we said, okay, now you're speaking our language. The creative word is our thing. So.
Yeah. So we realized they were having a branding problem. And it was going to be hard to communicate that on social media. And also they would never be able to afford the cost of just making them a video and handing it to them, because we wouldn't be able to make enough money. We wouldn't be able to profit enough to make it worth our company's time. So we were like, well, if we can hang on to that video instead of just making somebody else work and giving it to them, maybe we can find out another way to monetize that. So we looked at what we've done at Vat 19, and we looked at everything that we've done, and we're like, well, what if we came up with a brand that was just all about our company? Like, let's come up with a YouTube channel. It's all about our company. We make commercials. We'll use the reality style production we do to tell that story that we love making, that we're really good at making, and we'll tell that story. And as part of that story, we can be making commercials for these people that need them on a budget, but we'll keep them and be able to show them on our channel as sponsors, therefore like coming up with another income stream, and everybody's happy. They get a commercial. We get to fund a cool channel that we want to make. And that's what we brought to them. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. And that was awesome. And that was at the beginning of this year.
That was about February. And
yeah. So
we all know what happened.
We were all ready to expand our business. We'd come up with a great model that worked for these tariff laden clients, and it was going to work out great, and everybody was going to be happy. And then the day
the creative filter hit, let's call it
the bigger creative filter hit, because the first creative filter was the money, which we thought was going to be the worst.
Yeah.
And the bigger creative filter hit, which was COVID. The day we were signing the contract, our governor in Illinois, we live in Illinois, signed our stay home order. We were mandated to stay at our house, and we couldn't even go to Vat 19 anymore, let alone our company. And we had to say, like, it would have been easy to be like, oh, this is a horrible time to expand our business, to invest more money into it, to take bigger risks. Let's not do this right now. Everybody's struggling. Where's the money coming from? But we said, let's not do that. Let's wait.
Pause.
Let's pause. Let's take a deep breath and just assess the situation. Don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as a filter. How can we take this problem of COVID and what's going on and use it as a filter for the model we just developed that sounded awesome? Well, we thought about it, and we're like, well, the needs have stayed the same, really. And in fact, they got bigger.
Yeah, as we learned, even just in a few short weeks of everyone staying home, is that online sales went way up. So everyone was shopping online a lot more, as you guys probably know. Like, you can't go to stores, but you still need things and you still want things. So you got to shop online. And
our clients who were asking for video to use on their website and in their stores, like for store displays, all of a sudden had a huge need for video. Like, all we have is video. We don't have in-store displays anymore. Nobody's spending time in the stores. We need this video to give the in-store experience for us. Mm-hmm. And we said, well, that's great. There's no better guys than us. Like, all we do is make creative online video content for products and brands. So we were really pumped about that. And we took that filter and we're like, hey guys, we can still do this. But then we had to look at the things that we talked about you before, which have been constantly changing for us. What we are allowed to do, what we can do, when we could start on things. And we just said, okay, here's when we can do this. Here's how we can do this. Here's what we're going to change. Here's what we're going to give you first. And we were able to still seal that deal. We signed that contract a little later and expand our company's brand and launch this new YouTube channel, which we're about to launch on
early September.
Early September. We're not exactly sure on the date yet. Maybe early, very early.
Yeah,
we're working that out right now. We were able to launch this brand that we're calling Randomonia because it's just going to be random, fun, wild ideas that we have. And we're going to use these brands that really need online commercials to help us support our wild ideas. We're going to make really awesome wild idea commercials for them and do everything we love to do, but still in this world. And we realized, hey, the world expanded in COVID, and me and John are close. He's the godfather to my kids, and our families are together all the time. It was pretty easy when they allowed us to expand our circles to say, let's include the two of us. And that's why we're in the same room together right now, whereas a lot of people still are working from home. We work together.
Yeah.
And we were able to apply that filter of COVID to that. So that, you can see, just always kind of thinking and not being put down by any idea. Just look at it as, what are the lists of pros I get from whatever obstacle just came, so I can turn it into just the tools that I have to create. That's all everything is in your entire life, man.
Yeah.
It's the tools you have to make things. If you're a creator, if you're a video maker. And the cool thing is if whoever's watching this, if you guys are if you are YouTube creators, not just traditional media producers, man, you have all the tools at your display, or all the tools that you're used to do this better than television is. Have you guys watched TV lately? It's way worse than this. This is our time to shine. Be excited about that. You just got handed the greatest creative filter to make the best content that people can get right now, because all those old school people working in film and TV, they have a really hard time giving their talent a camera and telling them to do stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you look at Seth Meyers and all those kind of guys, late night talk show guys. They had massive crews helping them get their job done in a big studio, and so they are having a tough time adjusting. So
yeah,
this is a time when YouTubers can be making better content than the pros.
Yeah.
So and I think they are, which is really cool. I think with anything, look at your problems. Kind of, I think the way to summarize what we're saying is look at these things that you might initially think of as problems. And we do it all the time too. We get ordered to stay home and we're like, oh my gosh, how is this going to work? We initially, the gut reaction is how are we going to make this work? But it's important to pause and remember that they're not problems. They're not necessarily obstacles. They can be creative filters. They can be means to see your goal differently than you initially thought. And you might come out with a better product because of it. It'll be different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's better.
So we're getting kind of close to the end here, so I want to take a moment too to say, if you guys got any questions about kind of specific COVID-related production stuff, we'll take those now. And while we're waiting for those, we can kind of discuss a couple of things that we have done, that's been a functional production end of COVID. So to John's point there, whenever we had to work from home, one of the filters we realized that gave us was better sets. The set that we could shoot in was now John's kitchen, which he just newly remodeled, and it's beautiful and a classic mid-century modern home. It's just, we have this cool house we can shoot in that we didn't have at VAT-19. We've got the woods behind your house. We've got all these different places to shoot, and it became a different thing. So we gave those to our writers who were working remotely, didn't know what we had. We said, hey, here's all the things each producer has at their disposal. And that was one of the first functional things we did, was create that list. It was the sets, it was the equipment, it was also the skills. Sometimes you got to be honest with yourself. who can do certain things and who can't. And that's not a dig or like you don't have to take it personally. Just know like, hey, like John's got different strengths than I've got. Like we're totally well. Like I'm more of an idea guy. John has a better eye for framing shots than I do. So so like whenever we did one video together, I mean mine was just like this wild, weird idea, and his was all these beautiful shots, and like and we made it work together. Like and my production wasn't as great as his, but together we made a really awesome video, which was cool. The conspiracy one, my conspiracy one, But yeah, so that was the kind of thing is like make that list first right away. What tools do I have at my disposal that are available? Cool, here's what I got, and then what don't I have? Get rid of it. Forget you even have it, and just put it on hold until this is all over.
Yeah,
that's not a big deal. One of the other things that we did was really just think about like how flexible can we be, and making sure that when you're making plans for anything, you've got a plan B, and you've got a plan C, and a plan D, because when you get to that point, you might not have a really good plan B for the video you were planning on doing, but then all of a sudden some new restriction came in and you're not allowed to do that anymore. Doesn't mean you have to stop this because you don't have a plan B, but your plan B could be, we're going to go to this other video while we figure out what to do there, because I know I'll need more time for that. And just always be all right shuffling things and be really flexible with what you're doing. If you can stay further out in your production schedule to where you know what's coming up, anytime you hit a roadblock that keeps you from doing what you can do right now, you can reshuffle. And it's tough. Some, clients, sometimes if you're working with clients and stuff, they're working with deadlines and they're working with like people displaced and communicating all over the place. And it can be hard to communicate. So you've got to really kind of stay organized and write everything down, essentially. Like we say that every day, like, oh, we didn't do that. Put that in Asana, write that down so we remember the next day. Mm-hmm. So that first list you do right out of the gate is probably the most important thing. What tools do you have at your disposal that are different than what you had before?
Yeah.
And then wrap up here. I guess the easiest thing is like we all really want it to go back to normal, and we get that. I miss working with all my friends at VAT19. Mm-hmm. That was fun. We all missed being together. We missed doing that stuff. And it's easy to want to get back to that, and
it's easy to try to force your way back to that by saying, I need to do this, and this is how I used to do it, so I need to like do it the same way, and try to force it back to that way. Where what we're trying to tell you is, what we're trying to encourage you is to maybe use this opportunity and any other kind of problem that comes up as a creative filter to rethink how you get to that goal. So if you have that goal is not changing for you, then you're going to have to get there a different way, and use that as an opportunity to open up your creativity.
Yeah. I mean, like we said at the very beginning of this, like if you take your problems and make them creative obstacles, if you take your problems and obstacles and make them creative filters, instead, you're going to get to an idea that you would have never had before.
Yep.
VAT19 would have never been making music videos if John didn't have the desire to do that and just figure out, how do I take what I have to do and how can I filter that to do what I want to do. We would have never got to do Hidden in Plain Sight if we didn't take the filter. We need to sell a product. We need to do things here and figure out how do we do that. It would have never succeeded if we didn't look at like, how do we produce this and then how do we apply that? Like it's always about like, as long as you remember the beginning like of what you do, that's great, and that's how you did it. But this is your golden opportunity. COVID is, as a creative person, it's your golden opportunity to think outside of your box. Everyone always tells you to think outside of the box. Like, that's easy. Like, how does everybody do it? How have you been doing it? How have you been holding yourself in? Everybody does it, no matter how creative you are. And how do you do something completely different that you wouldn't have done? People are forgiving now. People understand things are going to be different. And people are excited about that. That's fun. That's how we've got some of the more unique, more fun content. We'd never have John Krasinski on YouTube if it wasn't for COVID. And how cool has that been? It's been cool.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us. I think we're good on questions for now. And if there's anything we can say is like, have fun, be creative, and let this be your time to shine.
Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the internet.
Yep.